I was born and raised in Japan and came to the United States alone after graduating from high school. As a child, I was active but quiet in public. I hated public speaking, and I still don't like it, to be honest. But I had this dream of one day becoming a bilingual TV journalist. So I came to the United States to study journalism at one of the top journalism schools in the United States. Everything was going well until I actually began taking journalism classes. Writing stories was fine, but the interviewing part was not so good. I took classes in news reporting, and I had to interview a bunch of people to write news stories. Problem is, I felt horrible having to call a crime victim, for example, and ask personal yet such obvious questions like, how do you feel about having your house robbed? So I changed my goal and decided to go to law school. I thought I would be able to write my own ticket, being a bilingual. I thought I would be a corporate lawyer involved in cross-border transactions. But after law school, I ended up becoming a litigator at a law firm in Los Angeles. I was doing well, and then I moved to an international firm where I received nothing but praises. Then, at a regional firm I joined several years later, I was told that I wasn't as good as they expected, whatever their expectation was. They even implied that perhaps I wasn't cut out to be a litigator. I had never been criticized like that, and it felt like a punch in the stomach. This happened more than 10 years ago. Fast forward to 2020, and I'm now the general counsel of a US subsidiary of a global corporation. So why am I telling you all this? I've thought about this a lot. I've come to realize that the problem I was having was probably caused by both external and internal factors. By external, I mean an implicit bias against my professional potential and ability as a foreign-born Asian woman who didn't necessarily fit the typical mold of a Western-style aggressive litigator. By internal, I mean feeling insecure, lacking confidence, and trying to fit in and adopt a style that wasn't really authentic. Coming from a culture of humility and tight social norms, I thought I had to be more aggressive and act confident. But I was focused too much on conforming and not thinking about what I bring to the table by being myself. This country has so much talent with diverse backgrounds and experiences. We are missing the opportunity to unlock this wealth of talent by not actively encouraging them to be authentic, recognize their strength, and lead. Studies show that there is an implicit bias against minorities and those born outside the United States in assessing their professional potential. In a study conducted by the Center for Talent Innovation, the researchers studied large global organizations to determine how their HR officers assessed employee potential. The researchers found that the competencies these HR professionals assessed were distilled into 6 dimensions: ability, ambition, commitment, connections, emotional intelligence, and executive presence, or ACE. ACE bias is an employee's perception of negative bias in their supervisor's assessment of potential in 2 or more of these 6 dimensions. The researchers looked at which employees reported being negatively misjudged about their professional potential against the ACE dimensions. They created a heat map to understand the experience and effect of bias among various employee cohorts. The percentage of employees in each cohort who perceived the ACE bias ranged from about 8% to about 15%. The top 3 cohorts that experienced most biases were people who were born outside the US, like me, Asians, like me, and people with disabilities. Manager bias and negative feedback significantly affect employees' confidence and self-perception, and it can have a huge effect on employee careers. And if you are subjected to ACE bias, it would negatively affect your sense of belonging at your organization. If you feel recognized and respected, feel connected and supported at work, and if you feel you are proud of your work and your organization, you feel aligned with the company's purpose, vision, and values. These are the elements of belonging. A recent study that looked at various demographics, for example, race, gender, national origin, introverts, extroverts, etc. 1 in 3 Black employees and 1 in 4 Asian employees said they have felt out of place at work. Asian women had the lowest sense of belonging score. Employees born outside of the United States also face challenges to a sense of true belonging. They said a different accent or cultural perspective can make them as other. Introverts' belonging score is also significantly lower than extroverts' belonging score. Low sense of belonging leads to low retention rate, low level of engagement, and lack of loyalty. Because these employees may feel regularly alienated, they tend to withhold ideas. And they start looking for a new job or may start a negative campaign against their employers on social media. These types of behavior are very costly to companies. Then what can we do to prevent this? The first thing we can do is to diversify the leadership. Inherently diverse executives show that difference is valued at your organizations. Employees at large companies that do not have a diverse leadership team experience an increase in perceived ACE bias. With diverse individuals in top roles, employees at large companies are 64% less likely to perceive ACE bias and 19% more likely to be engaged. The second thing we can do is to promote inclusive leadership. To see the potential of diverse employees, leaders must get beyond gut-level assumptions. They can do so by creating a speak-up culture where everyone feels welcome and included. Research shows that with inclusive team leaders, employees at large companies are 87% less likely to perceive ACE bias and 39% more likely to be engaged. So here are the 5 things inclusive leaders do. First, they are committed to creating a welcoming culture. They actively reach out to employees from diverse backgrounds and really seek to understand them. Second, they are aware of their own biases and they really try to prevent these biases from affecting talent decisions. Third, they are open-minded and curious about different ideas. They engage in respectful questioning and active listening. And they refrain from making snap decisions that can stifle the flow of ideas on their teams. This creates a sense of psychological safety where people are more likely to share information and ideas without the fear of being talked over or dismissed. Most of us know that Steve Jobs was very difficult to work with. In contrast, Johnny Ive, Apple's former chief design officer, had an opposite style toward his team members. His philosophy was to give the quiet ones a voice. Fourth, inclusive leaders are able to change their styles in response to different cultural norms. And fifth, inclusive leaders create an environment where everyone feels empowered to express his or her opinions freely with the group. Inclusive leaders create a sense of one team by creating a group identity and shared goals. I personally know what it feels like to be isolated because I've been there. I didn't fit into the culture of an organization. The environment was not overtly hostile, but it was not inclusive either. People didn't seem interested in knowing where I came from because that was not important to them. So I just tried to fit in. Over the years, I don't know how many times I've had to make a fake laugh at jokes or somebody's comments about TV shows, even though I had no clue what they were talking about. People who grew up in another country all share this experience. In an increasingly diverse workplace, one way to address this is to pick a topic that is not culture specific. But I've also had positive experiences as well. I'm very fortunate to have friends and colleagues who have been so encouraging and supporting. I still remember something a good friend of mine told me a few years ago. She said, "I think you have a great blend of Eastern quiet inner strength and restraint and Western boldness and confidence." She said, "This quality about me would continue to serve me well, both professionally and personally." In fact, this friend helped me understand for the first time that this is my strength, a good blend of Eastern and Western qualities. We all need friends like her, supportive and encouraging. But we also should spend time being introspective and challenge assumptions about ourselves. We need to change our narrative because what we believe and focus on truly drives what we will ultimately achieve. We may be guided by beliefs that are left over from a previous role or simply wrong. It's not just about positive or negative thinking, but it's about whether what we believe about ourselves is aligned with reality. For example, we often have more influence and are more capable than we think about ourselves. Having an accurate view about ourselves is essential to being authentic, which is key to succeed and lead. Great leaders are very self-aware and understand how their origins have come to shape them. In other words, they're grounded. Being grounded helps us be more comfortable with the changes that life brings. That makes us become more effective as leaders. We are all work in progress. I am definitely a work in progress, and this journey will never stop. But at least I've reached a point where I'm fine with the differences between my background, my ways of thinking, and the cultural norms I grew up with and those of the others. And I fully embrace who I am because of the words of encouragement I've received along the way. I believe this makes me a better leader. If we can all lift each other up by being inclusive and supportive, we will have better, productive workplaces and society at large. Thank you.